What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards Football Sports Talk Radio. I'll be host and producer today, Logan Landers, and joining me is my co-host, Brian LaBelle. Today, we're going to be talking about Quinn Ewers, and the big decision he has to make is, will he, A, stay at Texas? Will he, B, transfer and go to another college? Or C, will he declare for the NFL draft? Very interesting prospect here. A guy who's been around the game. He had the nice flowing mullet at Ohio State, went over to Texas, got the buzz cut, had some ups, had some downs. A lot of people calling for him to be benched in favor of Arch Manning. It's been a very just kind of topsy-turvy year and just collegiate career for Quinn Ewers. But through it all, he has gotten through all the naysayers, all the doubters, and Texas is a top 4 team in the nation right now. There's no question about that. As they prepare against the Ohio State in hopes of getting a championship. So, Brian, I'll just open the floor to you. What do you think Quinn Ewers is going to do? Should he transfer? Should he stay at Texas? Or do you think that he'll end up going to the league?
I think the main thing that most of these prospects have in the back of their mind, we can talk, love the game, want to do this, want to do that. It's money. And now with the NIL and the portal stuff, I mean, Ewers would probably be maybe the hottest commodity if he were to say, hey, I'm coming back and Texas is moving on, so I have to transfer. There'd be a lot of teams that'd be backing up the Brinks truck to pay him. But then again, he could also be a sneaky, maybe late first round pick. Maybe he's the third or fourth quarterback off the board, and your signing bonus is going to eclipse any money that, North Carolina, like if Bill Belichick was like, hey, I like your game, or if Georgia decides like, hey, if you're leaving, come play for us, or wherever it might be, probably make you a little bit more money that way. A lot of it too might just be his draft grade. If he talks to people, because I know a lot of these kids are going to hire guys to come in, give him a draft grade. Realistically, where am I going to go? What do I need to do? What kind of questions do I need to answer at the combine? And if they have him as a later round guy, there's no reason not to come back.
It's a guy who could be, if he stays in college, get reported around $6 million in NIL money. Because that's another factor that we haven't really had to figure out in recent years. And there's money involved now. It's not just, okay, where am I going to go to get playing time or boost my stats or whatever? It's money. Granted, you're going to get a lot of money if you're first round or if you're drafted in the first round, but it's also all about situations too, because you don't know where you're going to go. Like you said, some scouts have him as the third best quarterback if he does declare. Some might have him middle of the pack. It just kind of depends on where you read your sources from. So it's a tricky situation, right? We know that Arch Manning has just been twiddling his thumbs, waiting for his time to start. It kind of feels like, in a sense, that they're nudging Quinn out of there, right? They're not pushing him out, but they're trying to say, hey, we appreciate the run you're giving us right now, but this is it. There's not a point in coming back next year. But, I mean, if you look at how Quinn has done, right, you say, okay, he does really well against some teams, not so great against others. Just kind of depends. But he's a player that's very interesting, right, in terms of, well, if he does go somewhere like, I don't know, like a Notre Dame or something, right? Or another, it's just going to be a high-profile school regardless. Maybe Alabama. I don't know. There's the options are endless, to be honest with you, because every team in the country would want him as their starting quarterback for the most part. So if he does go, great. If he goes to the league, I mean, honestly, like you said, it just kind of depends, because I don't know what teams are kind of looking for and you compare him to like the Cam Wards, the Milrose, or the Sanders of the world. I mean, there's some boxes, like you said, that he could check and he could be a little bit better than, because like we said, we just talked about Jackson Dart, who's somebody who's going to be, day 2, day 3 pick. But for Quinn, I see him day 1, day 2, as opposed to, I don't think he dropped that far. But like we said, all of our draft videos, honestly, it's just where you go and how the draft kind of lays itself out. But it's tough, Brian. It's tough because it's a big decision, obviously. We saw that one decision was made in Cade Klubnik the other week. He decided that he's going to stay at Clemson, which a lot of people thought he could go to the draft, but he's trying to just make his star power even bigger going into the 25-26 season in draft. Do you think that if Quinn moves to a different school, wherever the hell that may be, that he, instead of being maybe, top 3 quarterback, maybe top 10, just kind of depends on where you look, that he could be anywhere like a top, maybe number 1 to number 3, number 1 to number 5, if he stays in college?
A lot of it is just going to depend on who comes out next year and plays really well. Because another thing, too, if he stays and he transfers, he's going to have to compete with the kid that's backing him up right now, who's the elephant in the room, Arch Manning, more than likely. Because if Arch plays well enough, there's a decent chance that he's going pro also, because he'll be a junior, if I'm not mistaken. Throw another wrench into it. If you're Texas and they're still playing, let's say Texas wins 2 more games and Quinn Ewers plays phenomenally in those 2 games and says, hey, you know what? We won a national championship. I'd like to run it back. What do you do then? Am I going to kick a guy who wins me a national championship to the curb and say, hey, we love what you did, but we kind of got to move on? Then it kind of becomes an impossible scenario for Texas. Ewers is interesting, though, because he can play. The reason why we're having this conversation is him transferring, him staying, him going pro, is because he could absolutely play. If he wants to come back and say, you know what, I'm going to go play for Oregon and I'm going to replace Dylan Gabriel, or I'm going to go play for, Alabama, I'm going to go replace Jalen Milroe. He could very easily do that. And I don't think those teams would miss a beat realistically on offense. And I still think he could, not exactly the situation he has at Texas, but if his goal is, hey, back of my mind, I want to win a national championship before I'm out of here, that's the main thing I want to do. And if he doesn't do it this year, that's something he could do. If he wants to play at the next level, I don't know. I think it's way too early looking, like you said, the original question. I don't know who you look at next year as far as prospects. It's kind of way too early for that, because there's still some shuffling around. Guys could get hurt. Guys could, move. Some guys could, be flash in a pan. But, whatever he does, he could play. And I think his options are, sky's the limit. Options are wide open. He can do whatever he wants.
I'm looking through articles here just to see some potential destinations he could go to, and 2 have really, actually 3 have caught my eye now, and I just want to get your thoughts about who might be the best fit for Quinn Ewers if he does stay in college but he transfers, because that's kind of how it's looking. Texas did also bring over another quarterback in the transfer portal, so played at Texas Tech, played at Baylor, I believe KJ Rogers, I believe, is who that may be. But the 3 teams in question, it's going to be Georgia.
Yeah.
That's 1. The second is going to be Alabama. Actually, I'll give you 4. Why not that? Georgia, Alabama. He could go to Oregon, perhaps. Dylan Gabriel's leaving.
Yeah.
And just got to throw this out here, just for the wild card. North Carolina got a new head coach in Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
What do you think about those?
Georgia's, if you can't beat them, join them. I think that would be the perfect say. Like, hey, these guys couldn't beat them. Might as well. Hey, I could don the red and black and go play in Athens, and I think he'd be welcomed. I think instantaneously he's the starting quarterback, and I think they would probably be. I think AP would probably have him second or third in the polls going in next year, starting out. Oregon's interesting, because Phil Knight's saying, hey, listen, before I kick the bucket, we got to win a national championship here. So money would be no object there, most likely for him. I know a lot of people are kind of complaining, like, oh, we need to put a cap on how much we're paying these kids. But, there's nothing there right now. Alabama would be interesting, too, because, I mean, again, they were right on the cusp also. I mean, they're a Vanderbilt win away from being in the playoff themselves. I know there was a lot of controversy surrounding on who deserved it, blah, 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 but they're right there as well. And North Carolina, to me, that's interesting, because I think Bill would probably give him the best chance to get NFL ready. I think if his real plan is like, hey, I want to go play professional quarterback, I want to be good, and I want to have a leg up on the rest of these guys going to the next level, I think North Carolina would be absolutely the place to do that.
So I was fact checking during that. It was CJ Rogers who Texas has added. A guy who played at Texas, Texas Tech, played at Houston Christian, played at Baylor for a little bit. So, I mean, he's bumped around, but it's still another quarterback in the room. In terms, it feels like they're, like I said earlier, there feels like they're nudging him out, saying, "All right, Quinn, we love what you did here, but we need you to leave. We love you, but we can't have you. It's time for the new blood." Which, that's kind of, you know what I mean? It's kind of funny just because they're in the situation they're at now because of how he's played primarily. So that's just how it goes sometimes. It's a business, but. Ultimately, we can sit here, we can chat about it for another 40 minutes, another hour and a half. But I mean, ultimately, Brian, it's not up to us to decide. It's up for the man on the screen to figure out what he's going to do. I think that if he does go into the league, I think that, like I said, he'd probably go maybe day one. Just honestly, it depends. Day two feels better. Day three, kind of a slip, honestly, if he does go day three. But if he transfers, he runs the risk of he runs the risk reward, right? Of you risk it because if you get hurt, that could that could really affect you. Or if you have a bad season, right? If you don't put up nearly as much numbers, if you struggle, if you throw a lot of interceptions, et cetera, that'll hurt you. But if you come over to whatever school, any of the ones I've listed, or could be another wild card, there's no telling. There's 100+ teams you could go to. Then that could make him the top two quarterback in the 2025-26 NFL draft, as opposed to where he could be here. But it's going to be fun to see where he goes. But all I know is for sure is he's not worried about this right now. He's worried about Ohio State and how they could do and if they can get the win in the college football semifinals. But Brian, any final thoughts here on Quinn Ewers before we wrap things up today?
If he was 2 inches taller, he'd probably be the second or third quarterback and maybe a top 10 pick without a doubt. And I think that's the question. A lot of these quarterbacks is it's just the measurables. It's not the production. It's just, hey, he's only 6'2". We'd love to have a 6'4", 6'5" guy at Joe Burrow, at Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. So that's, he can play anywhere he goes. They're gonna win. I think, like you said though, North Carolina, man, it'd be really cool to put on your resume and say, hey, North Carolina's a playoff team with a very weak ACC, and I'm directly responsible for that. So that looks pretty good on a resume too. But anywhere he goes, kid can play. I'm excited to watch him play next year, whatever he does.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where Quinn goes, but whether it's the league, whether it's to another team, I'll enjoy watching him play. I know that much. But hey, well, Brian, I appreciate you, man, coming on the show, talking about Quinn Ewers and what we think he might do after the season wraps up. If you guys want to check out any of the other draft prospect videos we've done, go and check out our Facebook and YouTube channel. Also, go and download our podcast, available every single day over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you enjoy listening to our shows. You can find it all over there. Once again, for Brian LaBelle, my co-host today, I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers. Until next time, everyone, we'll see you again on another live episode. See you then.